I'm starting to see a lot of people say Ja Morant isn't playing, Jaren Jackson isn't playing. How can we learn anything about this team? I think there's a lot to learn about the Grizzlies so far. I think we've learned a lot about this team, and there's a lot to talk about and break down in this show. Let's get into it. Coming up here on Locked On Grizzlies.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies. I'm your host today, Damichael Cole, beat writer for the Commercial Appeal right here in Memphis, Tennessee. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with us each and every single day as we continue to get through the preseason. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by none other than FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. Speaking of getting started, we're going to get started in today's show. We're going to talk about the star players a little bit. We're going to talk about Ja. We're going to talk about Jaren. Going to talk a little bit about what I'm hearing on the injury front with those two. But we're mostly going to get into the Grizzlies. What this team looks like right now, what we've learned about this team. We've talked about this from different degrees, right? But what I want to talk about is specifically what this team is missing from Ja Morant, from Jaren Jackson Jr., and what's working. Because there is something, and I want to say that for the third segment, but there is something that we've really learned about this team that I feel good about a certain area. There's some things we're going to talk about in the first two segments that I don't really feel good about, but there is something that I've been noticing. It's like, man, when they get Ja and Jaren back and they can add it to that, it could be really good. But again, it all goes back to the way this roster has kind of gotten structured, with the fact that you go out and get these defensive minded wings and these guys who could shoot and things like that, and you want to put them around Ja Morant, around Jaren Jackson Jr. And to me, in order for that to work, you need Ja and Jaren on the floor a lot, because those guys complement what Ja and Jaren do. So when Ja and Jaren aren't playing, some of their weaknesses become magnified, and whatever the case may be. But look, it hasn't been pretty. The preseason has not been pretty. Again, Grizzlies coach Twan Cicelo, he continues to emphasize the idea of the process over the results. And look, that's what they got to lean on right now. But at some point, people are going to want to see results. And getting into what we're talking about here, I want to talk about Ja Morant in the first segment. We're going to get to Jaren Jackson Jr. in the second segment. What is this team specifically missing without Ja Morant? There is something that the Grizzlies have been bad at without Ja. It's something that when Ja comes back, I think it can shift. But let's get into it. None other than the lack of offensive rim pressure. This has been, to me, the number one factor that's missing without Ja Morant. Beyond anything else, the lack of offensive rim pressure. The Grizzlies can't score in the paint right now. They are not a good paint scoring team at this point. You go through the first three preseason games, the Grizzlies have scored 40, 44, and 24 points in the paint. Let me repeat those numbers. 40, 44, and 24 paint points so far for the Grizzlies through the first three games. And it's not just that they're not scoring a lot in the paint. You go to the first game of the season, first game of the preseason, excuse me, they had 24 paint points, 12 of 30 shooting. That's below 50% shooting in the paint. That's terrible. That's beyond terrible. The second game, 22 of 41 shooting in the paint. Still not really good. I mean, you're barely over 50%. And then 20 of 36, 40 paint points in the most recent game. And it's like, that's still not that good. And the standard's high, because if you go over the course of the history with this team, when Ja Morant is on the floor, the Grizzlies are the best paint scoring team in the league. It's really that simple. It's no other way to put it. It is the number one area right now above anything. The absence of Ja Morant is missed. And Isolo talked about it, after one of the games. I think we mentioned it in the first game how the Grizzlies only had 24 paint points. And he said, we get Ja back. We're going to get some of that rim pressure. And look, that might be an understatement. Ja Morant led Grizzlies. Let's get into the numbers. You can say Taylor Jenkins era, whatever. But since Ja Morant has been on the Grizzlies, you go to last season. The Grizzlies were second in the NBA in paint points last season. The year before that, 2023, 2024, they were last. But that's also the season that Ja Morant played 9 games. Remember, he came back, hurt his shoulder, out for the season, played 9 games. Everybody got injured that year. But the Grizzlies were last in paint points that season. Now you go back the previous 4 years. Basically, Ja Morant's first 4 years in the NBA. 2022, 2023, 21, 22, 2021, 19, 20. First. Ja Morant's first 4 NBA seasons, the Grizzlies were the top scoring paint team in the NBA. The year he got hurt and only played 9 games, they were last. The season after that, basically last season, with Ja missing, 30 games, they still were second in the NBA in paint scoring. If Ja plays 60 games, this is an elite paint scoring team. Now, it was something that was heavily emphasized under Taylor Jenkins. We talked about how in practices they would do the drills where you got to touch the paint before you at least attempting the shot and things like that. But this is a Ja Morant stat. You go back to the year before Ja Morant and Taylor Jenkins, I guess if you want to link them together, got to the Grizzlies. 2018, 2019, Jaren's rookie year. The Grizzlies were 21st in the NBA in paint points that year. So the year before Ja got there, 21st. Ja's rookie year through his 4th season, first. Then the injury-riddled season where Ja only played 9 games, last. Then the season, last season, second in the NBA. Even without Taylor Jenkins, I don't think we're talking about this team going from being a top paint scoring team to 15th or something like that. You got Ja Morant. You're going to be somewhere near the top, even without Taylor Jenkins. But this has been the number one thing that has stood out to me. There's no rim pressure. When you don't have rim pressure, it makes everything else harder. It's harder to get easy shots. It's harder to get dribble drive opportunities. We talked about the type of shooting that this team has. It's hard to get easier looks, in those situations because you don't have those guys who drive to the basket and affect the defense from that standpoint. If you look at the players who are playing the most right now, Ty Jerome, if you look at his numbers, his shooting chart is magnificent. But when you get into that painted area, it gets a little yellow. It gets a little, this is not where he's his best. We've talked about it with some of the other guys. Jalen Wells, same thing. That's not where he's been at his best. Gigi Jackson, we talked about it with him. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, we talked about mid-range guy, like 3-point shooting mid-range. You're not going to find him mixing it up in the paint too much. There is not much rim pressure on this team without Ja Morant. And that is going to be one of those areas when he's not playing, it's going to be a drastic drop off in this area. And we've already seen it. With Ja, they could be the top paint scoring team in NBA, near the top of the league. Without Ja, we just talked about it. And in all those seasons, I think I mentioned the numbers, but I may not have. You go back to 2022, 2023, 57.7 paint points per game. You go back to 21, 22, 56.4 paint points a game. You go back to 19-20, Ja's rookie year, 55.9 paint points per game for the Grizzlies as a team. So consistently in the mid-50s. And now when we talk about it over these last 3 preseason games, 40 paint points, 44 paint points, 24. They're not even reaching 50. So that to me is a concern. You can't score in the paint in the NBA. It's going to be really hard to win because teams can pretty much try to take you away at the 3-point line. And they just don't have much respect for the guys that you have driving the basketball. But we know the entire league has respect for Ja Morant in that category. So that's something that I think, look, when Ja gets back, that is the main area where he's going to change the game. I know we can talk about the passing and the playmaking. We know Ja's going to make this team better because of his passing. We know Ja's going to make this team a better transition team because of the way he pushes the tempo as one of the fastest guards in the NBA. Both of those things are true. When Ja gets back, there's going to be easier shots for everyone. When Ja gets back, the Grizzlies transition scoring is going to take a leap forward. But nothing is going to benefit from the return of Ja Morant more than the rim pressure. The fact that when he's out there, they are simply, over the last 5, 6 seasons, the best paint scoring team in the league. Without him out there, that one season, 2023-24, they were last. And the team that we've been seeing so far in the preseason now, I got to reiterate that, in the preseason, looks like a team that would be really low in the paint scoring rankings over the course of a full season. So that's the area where Ja Morant stands out. What about Jaren Jackson Jr.? There's an area where he stands out nearly just as much as well. We're going to talk about that next here coming up on Locked On Grizzlies. But before we get to that, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. The thing about FanDuel that I like the most is not just the fact that you could do all these fancy bets, but FanDuel, they give nice opportunities for you to win. I like the no sweat bets, which basically is an opportunity. You get the bet, and if your bet lose, you get the money back in bonus bet money. So whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. Because if you're out there going to bet on a team that's not even your team, now you're rooting for someone else other than your team. So it just helps the game day experience. But what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app and get started today. Again, visit FanDuel.com to get started today and make sure you go download the app. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Listen, the thing about Monarch Money is most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, or whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Make sure you go take advantage of this. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks for you. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. Make sure you go take advantage of that now over at monarchmoney.com. Welcome back to Locked On Grizzlies, where we got to talk about the other star player that's missing. We talked about 1-2-time All-Star in the first segment with Ja Morant, cliffhanger for who we're about to talk about next. But we talked about Ja Morant, missing Ja Morant so far in the preseason. We've learned a lot about the impact of that. And somebody out there might be saying, well, yeah, duh, Michael, that's always the case. But actually, if you go back to a couple seasons, 3 seasons ago at this point, when Tyus Jones was taking over for the Grizzlies, they were still a pretty good paint scoring team in a lot of those stretches. But again, nothing is like missing Ja Morant in these situations. But there's an area where you could say missing Jaren Jackson Jr. has had just as much of an impact on the Grizzlies throughout the preseason so far as well. And to me, it's the rim protection, the paint prevention defense. They miss Jaren. They miss Jaren a lot. And I talked in the first segment about Ja Morant, and just because I said I was going to mention, kind of what I've heard on the front there. And it's not been a lot, obviously, ever since we heard Ja, basically said if he's smiling, you ain't got nothing to worry about and all that. We did see him during Monday getting some shots up at practice. He's moving around decently well. Isolo's keeping it close to the vest. He's not really saying much on that front, just saying that, hey, Ja is here. He's present. He's out there, but he's not giving much indication on where Ja is kind of at this point of his progression, other than the fact that he continues. He remains week to week. So we'll try to get more there on the Ja Morant front. But Ja, again, Josh says, is he smiling? You ain't got nothing to worry about. So take that for you want. Getting on to Jaren Jackson Jr., it's a little bit different, right? Because Jaren has been working out. He's been, ramping up, right? All these good things. And Jaren has actually been on the floor with the team. And this is one of those things that we know. And we spoke to Jock Landale, after practice on Monday. And I asked Jock about the idea of playing beside Jaren Jackson Jr. and what it could do for him defensively. And he lit up. Jock Landale lit up and he said, man, it's a huge difference. He talked about more than anything that Jaren brings to the game. He talked probably for a minute about Jaren Jackson Jr. before mentioning Jaren's offense. Specifically, the rim pressure, the ability to prevent paint points, rim protection. I said rim pressure because of the first segment. Rim protection that Jaren Jackson Jr. gives you. And one thing that we saw in that game against the Atlanta Hawks was when the Atlanta Hawks had Kristaps Porzingis at center, they were bringing, him to the three-point line, kind of playing this 5-out look, and that brought Jock Landale to the three-point line. And at that point, the Grizzlies had no type of backline defense. Well, guess what? You bring Jock Landale or whoever you got at center to the three-point line when Jaren Jackson Jr. is in the lineup, you still got one of the premier shot blockers in the NBA ready, to come over and swat something at the rim. And that's the difference. That's what Landale mentioned. It's that comfortability, for the guards, for the other bigs who are up there and say, hey, look, I can go up and play tighter on this guy. I can be more aggressive defensively because if you get by me, good luck. You still got to be one of the top defenders in the paint at the rim. We talked a lot about the numbers in the last segment, without Ja Morant. So let's get into the numbers on the other side of this, of what we've seen in the paint so far, because the Grizzlies have no rim protection right now. It's bad. I think just as bad as the rim pressure is on offense, the rim protection is just as bad defensively. Now, the numbers. The Grizzlies have given up 64, 50, and 64 paint points through 3 games. 64, 50, and 64 through these first 3 preseason games. Now, we remember the numbers on what the Grizzlies shot in the paint, and I'm gonna say them again because I want to compare them to these numbers of what opponents are shooting in the paint, just to give you an indication of how much success these teams are having at the rim. 64 paint points on 32 of 48 shooting. In that same game, the Grizzlies had 24 paint points on 12 of 30 shooting. So basically, the Grizzlies missed 18 shots on 30 attempts, and their opponent, the Detroit Pistons, shot 32 of 48 and only missed 16. So they made 20 more shots in the paint and still ended up missing less on 18 more attempts. Just to show there's a big discrepancy there. The second game, 25 of 36. We mentioned a game where the Grizzlies were 20 of 36 scoring in the paint, where they had 40 points. And here's an indication of an opponent that was 25 of 36 of 50 paint points. And then the most recent game, 34 of 51. 68 paint points in that game, excuse me. So 68, 50, 64. 68 paint points, 34 of 51 from the field. That's 17 missed shots. The Grizzlies, in their 3 games, 20 of 36, 22 of 41, 12 of 30 scoring in the paint. Each of their opponents well above 50%, whereas the Grizzlies are scuffling around 50%. One game they were below 50%. It goes to the point of the first segment. The Grizzlies aren't scoring well when they get to the paint, but also their opponents are scoring at a high level. So this whole idea of missing Ja and Jaren at the same time is a terrible recipe for the Grizzlies at the rim on both ends. Like it's getting carved up on both ends from the standpoint of this team is getting whatever it wants at the rim, and then on the other end, they're taking away everything from you scoring at the basket. So missing Ja and Jaren together is a terrible, terrible recipe. Obviously, with them two being all-stars, with these are your star players, but these numbers, take it to a whole nother level. Last season, the Grizzlies were 12th in paint, preventing, paint points allowed. The season before that, 2023, 2024, 10th in the league. The year before that, they were 8th. So this is not the same level as Ja Morant, so to speak, whereas with Ja, they're top paint scoring team in the league pretty much when he plays. But when you have Jaren out there and his rim protection, you're still somewhere in the top third, of the NBA in terms of preventing paint points. Whereas the team that we've seen so far in the preseason, Jock Landale, not really that much of a shot blocker. We know Santi, that is just not his game. It's not a strength right now. And you look, Grizzlies' first game of the season is against Zion Williamson. You can say a lot of things about Zion Williamson. You can say a lot of things about Zion Williamson. One thing you can't say is he is not a good paint scorer. Zion Williamson does pretty much all of his work in the paint. And right now, if Jaren Jackson Jr. isn't on that floor opening night, I'm just going to put it simple. Just close your eyes. You're not going to want to see what Zion Williamson will be doing in that paint if Jaren Jackson Jr. Isn't on the floor. So that's the big difference between missing these two. But guess what? It's not all bad. It is not all bad. We've also learned some good things about the Grizzlies as well. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Grizzlies. And before we talk about those good things, today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Peloton. Here's the thing about Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with brand new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. It's their most advanced equipment yet, designed to give you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or cross-training with your favorite instructors. This is training reimagined. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with tools that help you plan, stay motivated, and reach peak performance. I love how Peloton IQ system offers real-time strength coaching. It actually tracks your reps, suggests the right weights, corrects your form, making every rep safer and smarter, and making you look good in the process, And look, it's personalized class recommendations, keep you engaged. You get workouts tailored to your vibe and your energy level each week. So let yourself run, lift, flex, and push forward. Explore the new Peloton Cross Training Tread Plus today at onepeloton.com. Again, go over to onepeloton.com to take advantage of that opportunity. Some Grizzlies players are taking advantage of opportunities right now, and most of those opportunities are because the Grizzlies are missing Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. And there's also been opportunities for the younger players. We've talked about that a lot. Specifically the one game where the Grizzlies rested Ty Jerome, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and those guys, and let the younger guys play. But the thing about the Grizzlies is, I think it's safe to say this is a team that will go as far as its star players take them. And you can say that about a bunch of teams in the league, because at the end of the day, when you don't have your star players, I think the idea that you're going to be good, anybody, is not a good idea. The best case scenario when you don't have your star players is you're able to tread water. And that's where you draw the line. Can you tread water without your star players? Can you get through a 10-game stretch 4-6 or 5-5 even? Or are you going to go 1-9? And that's the separator. That's the separator. Right now, I'm not sure if the Grizzlies are that 4-6, 5-5 team without Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. Quite frankly, I don't think they are at this point. I think it's closer to the 2-8 side of things. But that's why they play the games. And that's why this is preseason. You work through the kinks. But this isn't all bad. There are some areas that I've noticed, just like we talked about the weak points. There are some things that this team is really good at. It's really going to stand out when those guys get back, but we're already seeing glimpses and shades of it. And the number one thing to me is this is going to be a good shooting team. This is going to be a good shooting Grizzlies team. And I say that because it was one of the questions for me. One of the questions for me was, you lose Desmond Bane, you lose Luke Kennard. Desmond Bane with the volume and the accuracy, Luke Kennard mostly with the threat and the accuracy, right? But two guys who, when they are on the floor, defenses are saying, don't let that guy get an open look. Not happening. This team, it's a little bit more variety. Like, sure, Jalen Wells might not shoot 40% from 3-point range this year, or we'll see if Kentavious Caldwell Pope can get back there because he's done it before. But last year he shot 34% from 3-point range. Scottie Pippen Jr. has shot the ball well, but can he, replicate that again, so to speak? But the thing is, the Grizzlies have a lot of different options. Ty Jerome, efficient 3-point shooter. Jalen Wells, efficient 3-point shooter. Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Scottie Pippen Jr. And these are the guys that we simply know will play. I don't think Cedric Howard will be a bad 3-point shooter. I know so far in preseason he only made one, and whatever the case may be, but you see those shooting mechanics just like I do, and I trust him. I trust the shooting mechanics. I trust that as the season goes on and he adjusts to the speed and knowing, hey, when I have time to get this shot off, when I need to pump fake, take a dribble and things like that, he'll get, more comfortable with those looks, and the numbers will reflect that. I do believe that when it comes to Cedric Howard. Then, of course, Santi Aldama. We know he's going to get his three-pointers up. He had his breakout three-point shooting season last year. I think he's going to have another solid three-point shooting season. So that's 5 guys right there. Ty Jerome, Jalen Wells, Kentavious Caldwell Pope, Scottie Pippen Jr., Santi Aldama. 5 guys capable, in my mind, of making 4 three-pointers any night. That's a key to me. How many guys do you have that can, any given night, riddle off 4 or 5 made three-pointers? Ty Jerome can do it. Jalen Wells can do it. Kentavious Caldwell Pope can do it. Scottie Pippen Jr. can do it. Giving Isolo a little bit of credit with the system and things like that, right? Because we know Ty Jerome is going to get his looks on the ball, off the ball. That's pretty much, what we know. Same thing with Scottie Pippen Jr. because they're point guards. They're going to play on the ball, but they're also going to play off the ball. They're going to get their looks naturally. But Kentavious Caldwell Pope said something real important to me the other day, and I was asking him about his role this season because I caught Isolo saying basically Kentavious Caldwell Pope is playing a role that he's never played in the NBA before. And I'm like, man, KCP's been in the league. This is year 13. So I asked him, is this something that you haven't done before, what you're being asked to do in Memphis? And he said it hasn't been since his first 2 years in the league in Detroit. That's how long it's been since Kentavious Caldwell Pope has played a role where it's not just catch and shoot, but he has the ball in his hands a little bit more. We've seen him giving the point guards a break, as he likes to call it, bringing the ball up the floor, initiating the offense. And then we've seen him be that secondary playmaker, right? The runner, as the Grizzlies like to call it, in the offense and make plays for himself or his teammates as they get into the action. That is something that Kentavious Caldwell Pope has not done since the first 2 years in the league. And this is a much older, more seasoned version of him. So going off of that point, he talked a lot about the struggles shooting in Orlando last season and what went into that. But one of those things that you hear a lot of NBA players kind of say, but they don't say this too much, I think because they don't want to make it an excuse, when it comes to, I missed shots or I didn't make shots. But Kentavious Caldwell Pope pointed out how in the Grizzlies offense, you get to touch the basketball. Now, that sounds simple to some, but if you played basketball before, a little thing about basketball, it's just different. If that ball hits your hand on that possession, you get to take 1-2 dribbles, put the ball on the ground, and just swing it. Because you get that feel for the ball. When it comes back, you're ready to catch it. You're ready to shoot it. Whereas sometimes it's stand in the corner, move around a little bit. Don't touch it this possession. Don't touch it this possession. All right, the next possession, 5 seconds on the clock. Here it is, shoot it. That's how it is for some guys sometimes. And it's just you got to let it go. You shoot it, whether you feel good, whether you don't. But in this offense, Kentavious Caldwell Pope pointed out how we get to touch the basketball. We get to feel for it. So after you take all those shots and warm-ups or whatever, you don't go another 15 minutes or something without touching the basketball. You still have that feeling of flow over the course of the game. So that's something that Caldwell Pope pointed out, and I think that will be beneficial for him. That will be beneficial for Jalen Wells because he was a guy who last season, very low usage, mostly in the corners, mostly one dribble, get into your shot real quick. But now he has a little more of freedom as a secondary playmaker, secondary ball handler, just like Contavious Caldwell Pope. So those things stand out to me in terms of the shooting aspect. Of course, the perimeter defense, we've talked about that a ton. I think the Grizzlies have the potential with Jalen Wells, with Contavious Caldwell Pope. You throw in a Cedric Coward, you throw in a Scottie Pippen Jr. They got a potential to be really good on the defense with their pressuring the ball on the perimeter. Now the key is, having Jaren Jackson Jr. and Zach Edey. We haven't mentioned Zach Edey in this show. He's another part that's going to be a big piece to protecting the paint and not letting teams score paint. So when you get Jaren back, you get Zach Edey back, and you combine it with the potential of this team with its defensive pressure, I think you could have something really nice there. So that's the good. We talked a lot about the bad. Let me know what you guys think as well. You might say, Damichael, I don't agree with you. It's only been 3 preseason games. That's not enough to say all of that. Or you say, you know what? I got the same concerns. And at this point, how do we fix them? We can definitely get into a little bit more of that in future episodes of Locked On Grizzlies. Thank you for making Locked On your first listen every day. For your second listen, go find the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 fantasy basketball podcast, giving you daily tips and helping you win your league, all while making you a smarter NBA fan. Find Locked On Fantasy Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on tomorrow's episode. Me and Joe Morant should be back together as we get ready to preview the first road preseason game for the Grizzlies. They'll be playing against the Charlotte Hornets. So we'll see, get a better idea of what this team looks like as they get ready to go on the road. There's also a practice on Tuesday, so I'll have more. Follow my work over at the Commercial Appeal. I'll have more from practice as well on what the Grizzlies are kind of saying and what they're looking like and everything along those lines. But thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Grizzlies with me on today. Remember that Locked On Grizzlies is free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm Damichael Cole, and we'll see you on Locked On Grizzlies.